Hello, my name is Elena Soderquist, and today I'm going to talk about the Swedish dual immersion program, particularly about Finland, Swedish dual immersion in Finland. First of all, I would like to say why I chose this model and why I was really interested in the topic, and to tell you a little bit more the reason behind it. First of all, I'm a mother, I have children. My children are bilingual between me and my husband. Between me and my husband, we speak 7 languages. I speak 4, my husband speaks 3 languages, and we're raising our children in a multi-language environment. However, we are focusing them right now on the 2 languages, which is Russian, my first language, and English, my husband's first language, native language. So we surround them by this, our first languages first. However, we're very interested into introducing them to other languages because we know more than 1, more than 2 languages. Therefore, we want to pass it on our children. So I didn't grow up bilingual, so as my husband. We learned it later on. However, my husband did come from the multiple language family, but his mom is Korean, his dad is American, well, Swedish, American Swedish, in a second generation American. But we have Swedish last name. That's another reason why I chose this topic, because we, through my husband, we have Swedish heritage. And Swedish is a language that I would like to introduce my children to. Then I also big on educational system, and I'm always searching and researching the best educational way, how to teach my children languages and educate them, just be a good educator for them. And I know that Finland is one of the countries, actually the country, that has a unique educational system that they have no homework. They promote mostly they promote a Montessori system in the schools, in education environment, and they have higher ratings on standardized tests and higher ratings on children in the literacy as well as math. So Finland has my interest for a really long time. That it's a very interesting, unique country that has a lot of mobility and a lot of novelty in their systems, educational system. And besides, I also was studying in St. Petersburg, and St. Petersburg is located very close to the border with Finland. And being in high school, we often would take trips to Finland, so I was quite familiar with the country and place, and I had love for that. And when I learned about this topic, basically this covered all my interests. We're Swedish last name. We want to introduce slowly more languages into our children's life, and I want to make sure that I have background and I set them up for success, so that I won't just toss it on them or throw it on them. I want to be able to have background and understand how I do it and what is the system for me to introduce the 3rd language to my children while they're still little. They're 5 and 3 years old. Finland has a great interest of mine. In Finland, they also speak, part of it speaks Russian, which is also the language I speak. I'm originally from Uzbekistan. That's another language I speak. So Uzbek, German, Russian, and English. Finland has a great interest. And through your material, I learned something I didn't know before. I was absolutely stunned and surprised that Finland has that unique system that's not just dual immersion, but it's that the Swedish immersion in Finland could have up to 4 or 5 languages introduced to kids before the age of 10, before the 5th grade, basically. And the first languages will be Swedish and Finnish, L1 and L2. And first dual immersion is Finnish and Swedish is designed also based on the same model that we've been discussing before we've been reading before through your materials, that was based on the French dual immersion, how it was organized originally and put together by the French parents who wanted to teach their children the language without like losing the other language. And Swedish also had that example as a model. However, they took it to the whole new level. So they gradually started introducing other languages. So first of all, the population of Finland is also divided amongst Swedish people, Finnish people, Russian people. French, German is a much less population, but the biggest of Swedish and Finnish population. So therefore, the decision was to make the school a dual language, designed to design the school responsive to two languages, Swedish and Finnish. However, they started introducing more languages later on, and the records are saying basically that it's up to 5 languages. So it's L1 plus 4 languages of foreign language, which is amazing. So the child by the age of 10 is able to speak 4 to 5 languages, speak and understand. I mean, that's another question, the level of it, but the system, the way designed, how they gradually introduced it, and originally they were introducing the languages in L1 and L2 were starting almost immediately right away from the beginning, but then they were introducing the third language in about 5th grade, and fourth, fifth language is in about 7th or 8th grade. But later on, they gradually were moving down, understanding that children have a higher comprehension of language and better ability to learn and understand the language, and less books and less brackets in mind while they're still young. So it's easier for teachers to introduce the L2, L3, L4, and L5 to children at a younger age. So basically they're saying that L3 was introduced in the 1st or 2nd grade, L4 was introduced like before the 5th grade, L5 could be introduced to like 7th, 8th grade. So they moved it down, and basically explaining that before the age of 10, the kids are introduced to all 5 languages. So that was absolutely outstanding for me and really amazing. Another good, interesting source that I want to right away just spit out everything that what I liked about the whole system, about what kept me speechless and was absolutely outstanding for me, that those things that I just described. Plus, on top of that, there was a study that has been done comparing the level of language comprehension as well as the academic achievements among the children, as well as the introduction of the other languages to the bilingual kids from the dual immersion programs, and monolingual kids from the single language program. And the results were showing that basically bilingual from immersion programs, kids were higher on comprehension of the other language because they were using the background of other 2 languages, and they were more willing to participate, even though they would not understand a lot of things that possibly the teacher was saying. They would still be using the cues, the physical cues, what the teacher is saying, and basically they were more willing to move on and move forward even if they don't understand everything, versus the kids from monolingual environment and school system were expecting, if they don't understand anything, they were expecting teachers to translate everything word to word, or they were much less willing to move on unless they understand everything, which was a very big indicator to the researchers that children from the dual immersion or immersion program were more willing to take risks, more willing to learn a language, more open to the other language, and as well as their academic success in other fields, on other topics, was way more advanced than the monolingual kids. The comprehension of the material was higher as well as faster. So the benefits were absolutely amazing and outstanding. And let's see, the type of the students that were participating in the model, of course, were mostly from bilingual families, mostly, not all, but mostly, because they were more prone to for that. And I also want to consider and mention that it's very important to understand that we're talking particularly about this system in Finland, which Finland itself is a country of multiple languages, not just two. There's more than two. So there's Russian, there's Swedish, there's Finnish, there's German also available there, French a little bit. So a lot of population, a lot of kids are growing up into multilingual environment, meaning that they're not multilingual just in immersion. When they go outside on the streets, they also are exposed to multilingual environment way more than, let's say, kids in the United States. So yes, we do have a lot of foreigners, and we have a huge exposure. However, it's not on the country level. It's more domestically and independent cases where like some neighbors could be like from China, from India, and other things. But Finland has Swedish language, the Finnish language, so that's absolutely bigger scale and different scale. So children are different. So I'm just as I was reading, I was trying to understand and comprehend the material, thinking how that could be applicable to us, particularly to my children, to our children, and our environment, our society, how it could be applicable, and whether or not it can be the same successful as it was in Finland. So we have to be considering that fact that our environment is different, and we have less of a broad scale of different languages exposure to our children in the environment where we're living, and the locally where we're living. So it has to be taken into consideration before making decision whether or not over here we should be doing the same system here, implementing it here. So I would be probably questioning in the beginning the success of this program. It's possible, however, the situation are different. The population is different. The languages of the population are different. The scale of the used languages is different. So that should be taken into consideration when we're considering our children here in Utah. Let's say sending, they're already bilingual, and we will send them to like other third language dual immersion. So I'm not sure if it's going to be the same successful. However, it's worth to consider. So let's see. Type of the students that were participating in the program were definitely mostly bilingual, or those whose parents were interested in the program and wanted that, but mostly bilingual. So definition, as I explained, of the school was Swedish Immersion in Finland. So what are the tenets of the model that qualify it to fit under the dual language education? That's very interesting, right? So we talk about dual language education. So however, as I mentioned here, we're talking about that it's not dual immersion, it's an immersion, but it presumes excuse me, the children will be exposed to more than 2 languages, up to 5 languages, L1 plus 4 languages on top of that before the age of 10. So that's very important to consider, and that's not called the dual immersion, it's just immersion, Swedish immersion in Finland, which considers other languages which are mostly spoken in Europe. So they could choose English, they could choose Russian, they could choose French, or they could choose all of them, because all of them are available in a Swedish immersion. So Swedish immersion means Finnish and Swedish are L1 and L2 for all the children that come to school, that introduced to them from the beginning. But other languages like German, French, Russian will be in English, will be introduced to them later on. So that's amazing. The goal of the model is first of all, because of the population. So I think it's also in a way the response to the needs of the population. So that's Europe. A lot of languages are spoken in Europe, so they could choose Spanish, they could choose Russian, which is not Europe, but it's the neighbor country. They could choose French, they could choose Spanish, as I mentioned, and German. This is the languages that are spoken the most in the country in Europe. So they could choose any of those or all of them altogether. And the reason of it, so that when children are graduating, they are able to live in Europe, live in the country, and comprehend all the languages and be it's important for the future career, for work as well. The more languages in Europe, especially, it's very important. The more chances they have with being with the career growth in any country, in any European country, or in their own country. So it's kind of got a feeling that it's kind of expected in a way. So it's promoted, it's welcomed, and it's very highly encouraged for children to learn more than two languages. So those languages that are crucial to the geographical location. So, well, as I mentioned, geographically, it's Europe. So that's self-explanatory. It should be given and common for children to understand that the reason why they need the language is because geographically they're located in Europe. They're between Russia, so between Czech Republic is nearby, so Europe is right there. So the languages are crucial. So let's see examples of this model. Examples I already mentioned. So examples of the models are in Finland, where it's public schools. They're public schools. So Finland barely has any private. They actually have none of the private schools. So it's all public, and they're implemented in public schools, the immersions. However, that's voluntary. It's not a must. So children or parents could choose to go to monolingual, where it's learned either only in Swedish or only in Finnish. But to choose to go to Swedish immersion in Finland, that will be a voluntary choice. So let's see. What other information is pertinent to understanding each dual language education and immersion models? Well, it's important to understand that dual immersions have to be looked at from the perspective of geographical location, of the population, and the languages spoken in area. That's very important. And like I did mention earlier, so the model that's in Finland happened to be successful, which existed over 20 years, and it proved its success. I would not know how well the same system would go up here. However, I think Utah would be one of the best places to try such system, and I definitely would like to see. As I was reading through material, I had all sorts of plans and thoughts to go to schools and encourage them to, in the already existed immersion programs, and it actually has been on my mind for a while, to introduce them to go into immersion schools and talk to people, to directors, and see if they have interest to introduce other language. And I was going to offer my service voluntarily as teaching Russian language, and that has been on my mind. But from talking to people and reading materials and asking people, I mean, it was on a small scale, but I understood that people are afraid of having the third language because a lot of people have presumption that two languages is already a lot and third languages will be too much, and very rarely people encourage that over here, unfortunately. I mean, it's possibly changing as time goes by, but that's something that helped me to understand how to approach the subject. And I was even thinking to even see, I've printed out, to even take this material, find this book and show it to whoever director of the dual immersion program will be there, to show them the study that has been done in Finland about the Swedish immersion in Finland, how children before the age of 10 are introduced to basically 5 languages, L1 plus 4 languages on top of that. And the success of it, which is documented, it has been researched, studied on the decades, for years, and comparison has done between monolingual and immersion language programs, kids. And the results of it were incredible. So that's a material that should be shown, and it could prove that it's worth trying. And I'm planning to work on it. Thank you so much. It has been my presentation, and I hope I answered all the questions that we had posted online. And yeah, so I was absolutely happy. I was reading this material. It was absolutely amazing. And Thanks to you. I had no idea, even though I was interested into Finland, but I had no idea about the 5 languages in school. I knew a lot of Finnish people in Finland, not necessarily Finnish. A lot of them speak really well Russian, really well German, really well English, and all of them were saying the same thing in the school, which for me was just mind blowing when I was there in person. But I never knew all the details that I've read from the material, so that I was just putting all the puzzles together, and it's absolutely outstanding. It's absolutely amazing material. I'm glad I chose this one, and like I explained in the beginning, that was the reason why I chose it, because I was pretty familiar with the subject and very, very much interested in the subject. So absolutely amazing. Thank you so much again.